Deepak Chopra recently released an article titled 10 Keys to Happiness. I wanted to read these 10 keys to happiness to help you along with your happiness journey. If you don't know who Deepak is, he is a spiritual leader, a spiritual influencer, and Oprah Winfrey is someone who constantly brings up his teachings, and it's arguably a large portion of how he got well known. Anyhow, he's a very well known guy because of Oprah and partially because of himself as well. And I wanted to read these to you, and at the end, I want to give my practical interpretation of this and just some words of warning because I'm more of a practical guy. And some of this is based off spirituality or his own opinion. Nonetheless, they're worth considering. And obviously, I definitely think that they will benefit you rather than hurt you. Number one, listen to your body. Seems very simple, but he advises that you listen to your body. If it sends signals of pain or emotional distress, watch out and adjust. Simple, but important. Two, live in the present. It is the only moment you will ever have. He goes into a lot of detail about how it reflects the infinite laws of nature that have brought you to this exact location. Don't struggle against the infinite scheme of things. Instead, be at one with it. Obviously, if you know me, I'm more of a practical guy. Some of this woo-woo spiritual stuff, it's beyond me. However, I would say that this is one of the most important points. I think, and the reason behind that is because it's really important to realize that most people live life like zombies. Like, spiritual stuff aside, most people go to work 9 to 5, they have an office job, and they're constantly thinking about the future because they hate their job. Oh, I can't wait till I get home. Or they're constantly consumed about the past, which has already happened and is no longer here. Whether it's childhood trauma or just stuff that pissed them off in the past. So being in the present is really important. The hip hop mogul, and he's also a spiritual guy, Russell Simmons, he says that being in the present has helped him tremendously in terms of profitability in your business. And he thinks it can help you no matter what career you follow. The point is, living in the present is really important because it really is what all you have. And it's important to enjoy the moment even if the moment is not that great. Honestly, long story short, a lot of successful people have brought this up, so I've put some weight on it. 3, take time to be silent, to meditate, to quiet the internal dialogue. Basically, he goes on about how it's important to realize that you're reconnecting with your source of pure awareness, and you have to pay attention to your inner voice so that you can be guided by intuition rather than interpretations of what isn't or isn't good for you. Now, of course, Deepak tends to go more into this spiritual stuff. Us practical folks, it's a bit too much mumbo jumbo for me. However, I do think that there's some merit in this because there's a lot of scientific benefits and experiments done to show that meditation is incredibly helpful for your health, stress levels, blood pressure, and from my own studies, thousands of Western celebrities and successful, wealthy individuals meditate. And it's a very strange coincidence. So there's science behind it. As far as the mumbo jumbo woo-woo stuff, not saying it's bad, not saying it's good. It's just, I just put it aside because, I'm more of a logical guy. Number 4, relinquish your need for external approval. This one doesn't have to even go into anything spiritual. I think this is just something that most people should do. And again, there are plenty of Western people who bring this up. For instance, Meghan Trainor, one of her central messages is about how female body shape shouldn't be, idolized or sought after. So I think it's incredibly important, and arguably there's science behind it because there's a lot of experiments done that show that dwelling and social comparison are the two biggest things that create perpetual negative social cycles that lead you to unhappy feelings. And unfortunately, it's further perpetuated by social media, of course. Every feed you go on, there's constantly girls. I don't know why they do it, but every single girl seems to love to make their lives seem better than it is and show off how great their lives are when it's not even that great, and then everyone gets jealous. It's a negative perpetual spiral. 5. When you find yourself reacting with anger or opposition to any person or circumstance, realize that you're only struggling with yourself. Putting up resistance is the response of defenses created by old hurts. When you relinquish this anger, you will be healing yourself and cooperating with the flow of the universe. Again, not so much about the flow of the universe part, but I do understand the logical part about how anger and negative emotions or just reacting in that way can sometimes be bad for you. Obviously, you probably know someone who's made some really bad decisions out of anger, impulse, or drugs that have probably screwed over their career. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to figure this stuff out. 6. Know that the world out there reflects your reality in here. The people you react to most strongly, whether with love or hate, are projections of your inner world. When you most hate is what you most deny in yourself. What you most love is what you most wish for in yourself. He goes on about this, but that's an interesting thing to dwell on. What you most hate is what you most deny in yourself. It's interesting because, on the internet, there are communities of people who get hundreds of thousands of followers, and all they do is release content where they hate on other people. And, it's strange. At first, maybe you can get jealous because they have such a following. But when you build your foundation on that, I just think it's a very negative, unhappy place to be yourself. So maybe it's not the best in the long run. The point is, there is definitely some truth to the fact that people who put out a lot of negativity, they have oftentimes their own issues to deal with, or they're jealous or envious, or, it's like, let's put that all aside. Some people say you're insecure when you do that. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. There is psychology behind that, but even if there's not, let's put that all aside. I think it's important to note that if you are hateful, you're just not in a happy place. 7. Shed the burden of judgment. You will feel lighter. Judgment imposes right and wrong on situations. Again, self-explanatory. Don't judge others. 8. Don't contaminate your body with toxins, food, drink, or toxic emotions. I think this is very self-explanatory, and yet most of us don't do it. I've definitely made some progress along this line, and I've went from junk food to more healthy foods. I've cut out any caffeine or sugar or soda, and I think it's really helped me in terms of my focus and health, and it's helped me sleep better. Number 9, replace fear-motivated behavior with love-motivated behavior. So his basic idea behind this is that what you're motivated by can really affect what actions you take. He says, fear is the product of memory which dwells in the past. Remembering what hurts us before we direct our energies towards making certain that an old hurt will not repeat itself. By trying to impose the past on the present, will never wipe out the threat of being hurt. So for me, I go to the more practical side. Obviously, there are certain people that tend to take this to a really esoteric woo-woo side, where it's like let the spirituality flow into you and the laws of the universe turn you into a divine frog. No, I'm more of a practical guy, and as you can tell by everything I've said already, if you explore psychology, there's a lot of people who are they never let even small minor things go, and it affects them to the present. I mean, some guy bullied you in your childhood, or someone did something and you never forgive them, and it haunts you, and then it manifests in numerous ways and how you treat others. And that's something I've looked at myself and tried to fix for sure, and I'm still working on it, and maybe that's something you should do too. Number 10, understand that the physical world is just a mirror of a deeper intelligence. Intelligence is the invisible organizer of all matter and energy. Okay, so he goes pretty deep into this stuff. Again, This last point, too non-practical for me. However, it ends with a more simple statement, which is, you cannot afford to live with a toxic mind because every thought makes an impression on the whole field of intelligence. Living in balance and purity is the highest good for you and the earth. So it's all about positivity, and it's one of the reasons why I chose to look at this from a positive outlook rather than tear it apart in a negative outlook, which I highly encourage you not to do in the comments. Again, his final point is, I think, true, and there's actually a lot of science behind this. If you look at books by Martin Seligman, he's a positive psychologist. He talks a lot about a lot of psychological experiments done on how your mind and how you think affects subtle actions throughout your day. So if you put yourself in a constant frame of mind of negativity, just small things, that will manifest with how your brain starts structuring itself, how you immediately interpret things and judge things when they come about. And I just want to conclude this with my own review and thoughts. Long story short, I think this is a very interesting and useful article, of course. And of course, there's certain things you can take from this. For me personally, I've come across in my pursuit of defeating depression, staying happy, and all those things, is that I've met a ton of people and I've gotten a lot of advice that's very opinion based. And the one thing I don't like about Deepak's article is that it's one of those. And I mean, he's not to blame because there's tons of people from religious organizations or other places that have said stuff to me about, this is what brings you happiness, this is what you should do. And it's really opinion based. And it's not grounded on much science or testing or experimentation, which is why I always recommend books like The How of Happiness and The Happiness Advantage. The first one is my favorite, and that took a lot of burrowing through dozens of books about happiness that weren't that great, or I finished them and I was like, okay, that was great, but that was mainly based on your opinion. And then if you did throw science in, it was based off confirmation bias, which pretty much mean you cherry picked evidence on what supported your theory. I think I really recommend The How of Happiness, because rather than what Deepak does sometimes, which is just tell you the world on how he sees it and what's worked for him, The How of Happiness is a comprehensive but easy to read book on all the science of happiness, what brings happiness, what doesn't, why doesn't certain things like wealth or more money or fame bring long-term happiness, why we get used to it very quickly, and ultimately why what you should do to actually bring long-term happiness. And rather than based off one person's opinion, it's based off extensive experimentation, decades of research, thousands, if not tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of humans who have been tested to see what works and what doesn't, to really figure out in a very rigorous, time-tested, scientific model what brings happiness. So I really love the book, and I mean, I see a ton of people recommending books in the self-help industry about happiness, and I think that's one of the big things that I don't like about it, because they can give you their opinions and stuff, but sometimes that doesn't work, or it's not working for you, and sometimes it works, but you don't know if that's the full picture, or just they've picked up on certain elements of the truth based off just their own random testing, rather than a very rigorous scientific approach. So again, I recommend this book, The How of Happiness. I'll leave a link in the description to the book. I was going to say dink, but a link in the description to the book. I think it's an incredible book, and you will find a lot of really interesting things in the book. And I think some things that actually bring happiness, like gratitude exercises, savoring the moment. There's about a dozen exercises, and it's incredibly interesting. And they make a huge point that this is not something that happens overnight, and different people prefer different exercises based off their body type and personality, and that's completely fine. but you will be surprised about what you find. And it's one of the central messages to all my content, which is that, you know, it's epidemic in this world that modern society has made it seem that, oh, if you're really rich and you're a millionaire or you're famous, that will make you happy, or if you achieve that success, that will make you happy. And that's oftentimes not the case. And unfortunately, it's constantly perpetuated. Millions believe this, and it's very not true. And this book goes into great detail about it. So again, of course, I've pointed out the things that are definitely still worth merit in Deepak's article. Of course, I think it would be incredibly useful to consider his advice as well, because heck, maybe that will work for you. So don't limit it out, but I also encourage you to check out the books I recommend, or any scientific literature. Thanks for watching so much, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. Hope you liked this video. Of course, if you're new to this channel is all about self-development and success. You can hit the subscribe button below for free updates every Thursday. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video.